Welcome, welcome. Go ahead and if you're here live, put in the chat box that you can hear me because that lets me know everything is doing what it's supposed to. Welcome. All right, I'm excited to have you here live. And so again, go ahead and put in the chat box that you can hear me, and I'm going to start sharing to Facebook. Dun, 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 dun. Nope, that's not the right button. Let's try this again. Live on Facebook. Welcome. As you know, we will get started here in just a minute. As soon as all the tech pieces go, and we know that everyone can hear me, etc. And I'm really excited about today, by the way, because we're going to talk about how to live in alignment. We're going to do a little bit of a review. There will be a bonus. Oh my gosh, I bet you had no idea that I was going to give more stuff away. Kidding, I've told you, plus all of y'all are psychic. So, all right. Bloop. We're almost there. Okay, so let me check one last time. Yay! All right, so everyone can hear me. That's what I like to hear. All right, I'm going to send the last email to folks. That way they know that we are live. It has been a really fun day so far. I did an interview for a podcast this morning. And so I basically woke up, did my hair and makeup, went on a podcast interview, and then immediately after that finished my my slides, and now we're here live. So it's really exciting. All right, so good. Everything is sent. It's set up. Everything is working. All right. So thank you for being here live. I'm really excited. And yeah, so I'm just really thrilled because today we're going to talk about bringing all the pieces together, and I'm going to teach you how to actually do full alignment work. Now, we've been talking about so far the receiving portion, right? So basically up until now, we have talked about, my lipstick is a little bit off. There we go. Hold on, gotta cough. I've been talking for an hour and a half already today, so hopefully my throat will stick with us. Anyway, so so far we've talked about everything that has to do with receiving, tuning in, receiving a piece of intuitive information, recognizing it, and then interpreting it, and then making sure our confidence is aligned so that we can take action. And the next step, once we actually feel confident, once we can actually hear what the universe is trying to tell us, what we really want to do is go to the next level, which is where we're a full participant. It's just not us going, hey, universe, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Tell me what to do, right? That's lovely. There's nothing really wrong with that approach, except for when you are giving away your control for your own life. Right? You're trying to give your control back to the universe. I don't want to decide, give it to the universe, right? So I'm going to show you how to do something different. I'm going to teach today how to figure out how to set spiritual-based goals, how to make sure it's actually in alignment with your heart, and how to fully align with those and then get messages and get into action. So does that sound exciting? Press 1 if it does. And we'll be starting the next portion here in just a minute. Okay, make sure. Good, excellent, excellent. Good, everything is going well so far. Yes, all right, so we're gonna go ahead. Let me see if my share. All right, so you should be able to see my screen now. Go ahead and let me know. Press 1 in the comments if you can see my screen. This just lets me know that you can see it. You're here, and we're all good. So that's just helpful for me. And then we're going to go ahead and great. So we can see my screen. Excellent. And all right, so basically, oh, I forgot to change this. This is masterclass number 4. This is not getting your Dowdy McDowderson on your side. This is living in full alignment. So anyway, now we know that now the slide matches. And so what we're going to cover today, we're going to do a little bit of review. I want to make sure you keep it fresh in your mind and in your heart, you know, what it means to really tune into your spirit guides, how it works, and how to get that information. And then we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about what it means to act in alignment, how to know when to feel the fear and do it anyway, which is sometimes an important part of the work, and when to work on releasing fear and resistance, right? This is a dance. It's not always going to be, so you don't want fear to rule your life. If fear pops up and you're never going to take action, then your ego has a really easy way to keep you from doing anything. Just a little bit of fear, not going to do the work. It's going to be great, right? But at the same time, you don't want to be in a space where you're in fear all the time. You don't want to be in fight or flight all the time. So we're going to talk about how to release fear when it appears. We covered that a little bit last time. We're going to go even deeper. Last time we talked about body, we talked about the ego. This time we're actually going to talk about how to really work with some journaling techniques. This is a way that you can get your mind on board with the releasing process and letting go of thoughts, feelings, sensations, and fears that pop up that will kind of try to get you off track, so to speak. We're going to talk about a win journal. I'm going to encourage you to start celebrating and having a win journal or a win buddy. If you're an extrovert and you want a friend to do this with you, definitely get a win buddy, and how to know when you're off in the ditch and how to realign. We're also going to talk about how to write effective affirmations and how to work through those. So that's what we're going to cover. It's going to be a really good time. So this is what I'm giving away this time. So whenever you go to the replay page, all of the party favors are going to be on the replay pages. And those are going to be up basically forever. Please don't use that as an excuse to just not do the things you feel called to do. But they will be up forever. So if your life is busy, you don't have to rush, right? So today I'm giving away the Trusting the Universe to Guide You meditation. And this is because I want you to feel that full portion where you feel really aligned and you feel really good about how things are going. You feel full trust with the universe. Okay, so we're going to do a quickie review. The 4 keys to connecting with your guides. Key 1 is receiving intuitive information. If you remember, if you have a pulse, you're doing this automatically. Key number 2 is recognizing intuitive information. We spent an entire 2 hours talking about how to recognize intuitive information, the different types of intuitive information that can flow through. And then key number 3 is interpreting intuitive information correctly. We talked about dream work and how to take those symbols, whether it's a physical sensation or a visual or a sound, etc., and interpret it accurately. And then we talked last time on how to trust intuitive information, as well as get the body-mind involved so that you can feel confident to take action. So today, we're actually going to talk about taking aligned action, right? Because now we got the confidence from last time. You know how to interpret your stuff. You know how to get a good intuitive hit on purpose and how to recognize it. So it's now time to start taking that aligned action, to really get down and do the work. It's going to be great. And just a review, the number 1 belief that will block you, this is the only major thing we're going to review before we dive into the content, is I did not get any intuitive hits. Now, as a review, this is the worst belief to have if you are dedicated to having a spiritual and an intuitive lifestyle, because it automatically blocks off your ability to recognize the intuitive hits that are always here always present. And remember, if you have a pulse, you're getting intuitive hits. So you want to rephrase this and say, I don't understand the intuitive hit I got. Show me the same thing a different way. And you will continue practicing that forever, for the rest of your natural life. And it's going to be wonderful. Okay, does all of that make sense? Before we dive in, we're going to talk about affirmations and heart-centered goals first. We're going to do an exercise to really clarify that. Okay, so Arden says, could you share your perspective of when making a challenging decision, how to reconcile between going for the road of least resistance versus your biggest mess is where the message or gift is? Now they seem to be contradicting. Thanks. Yeah, okay, so that is a really good question, Arden. So basically, they're not as contradictory as they appear on the face of it, right? So for instance, I'll share a story from whenever I first started my work. Whenever I first started, it was 2011. I did not know it's 11/11 right now. Yay. So nice little shout out from the universe. So it was 2011, and I really felt called to do the work and to do readings for people, but I didn't know how to charge because I'd only had minimum wage jobs up to that point. I was in college before that. I dropped out to be a psychic. So, I had only had minimum wage or near minimum wage jobs, and I had a really hard time pricing myself. So intuitively, I knew the biggest mess was my finances. I knew I needed to work on that. And simultaneously, the road of least resistance was me charging a very small amount just because it got me moving in the right direction. So basically, you can use your biggest mess that is a true mess in your life, right? So in this example, it's the finances, and then choose the road of least resistance to take the next step toward resolving it. So I charged $5 for readings back in those days because I didn't know how to charge more. Like internally, I just couldn't convince myself to charge more. I was stuck. I was in fear. I didn't know how to get my ego out of the driver's seat. So I did the best I could, and that was the best I could do at the time as far as charging what I needed to. Now, eventually I did figure it out. I didn't stay there forever, but it was something that took time, effort, and dedication for me to work through. Arden, does that help answer your question? Okay. Great. Yeah, good. Excellent. So I liked that question. It's a very common thing. Usually our biggest internal mess where we have the most emotional pain does give us a North Star, if you will. And then the path of least resistance is just giving yourself full permission to take the next step that's in that general direction without trying to, quote unquote, get it right. This is just about getting into appropriate aligned action with the best that you can do in the moment. And then you can improve the best that you can do over time with practice and with repetition. Okay, really good question. And that flows in really well with our next thing. Yes, Arden says that applies for cultivating and trusting our intuition. Absolutely, it's sneaky like that. For instance, if you can't follow your big hits that you know that you are called to follow, you can do the next best thing, the thing that's closest to it that you're capable of doing, and that's how you build the muscle. So good insight, Arden. Great, I'm gonna go ahead and share a different thing now because we're actually going to I'm going to share some training that I did for a different course. And da, 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 da. Okay, so can you see, you should see the affirmations number 1 mistake. Press 1 if you can see my screen and it says manifesting heart's desires, affirmation number 1 mistake. Good, everyone can see what I want you to. All right, good. That's what I like to hear. We're going to go up just a little bit. Okay, so some of this, we're going to go as we go, but I do want to, let's see here, where did I want to go? There we go. We're going to talk a little bit about how to connect with your heart's true desires, because what happens is as human beings that have been alive for however long you have been here on your Earth tour this time around, you will notice that you pick up thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and a pile of shoulds as you go, right? So you should start a business. You should take yourself seriously. You should do X, Y, Z. You should blah, 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 blah. And it's really important to learn how to connect to your desires, your deepest, truest desires, and release the shoulds. That way you can choose a path and ask questions of the universe and your guides that are actually aligned with what you want. So far, we've mostly been focusing on listening to the universe, right? Which is really important. Got to learn how to do it. Today, we're going to talk about how to listen to you. Because this is about a true partnership. This is about a true co-creation where you and the universe are partners in dancing together and co-creating together. And this is where true manifestation happens. And this is where you can truly create a lifestyle that is heart-centered and beautiful beyond your wildest dreams, not because of the external things. You will likely get some of those as you do it, but because you're in such alignment and you have such a deep, profound peace that nothing can shake it, right? Because you have developed it, you've created it, you've cultivated it. Okay, so we're going to talk about why and how to work with affirmations, how to write affirmations to rewire your body mind for what you really want, and how to actually do visualizations, right? We're going to talk about it today. So let's, nope. Okay, so the trick to knowing your heart's desire over pre-programmed or society's expectation is that the heart's desire will grow stronger the more you are in this state of presence. Basically, you're fully tuned into yourself in profound peace. Whenever we talk about profound peace, we're talking about that state of the perfect experience of wholeness within yourself. Right? And then a desire that is a poser, that is a must, should, have to, will actually go stronger and get louder the farther away you are from presence. So if you're in a state of presence, if you're called to have a spiritual-based business, it will feel clear, it will feel expansive. If you are called to build a spiritual-based business and you are feeling anxious and stressed, then the shoulds will start to come up. Oh, well, you should get a 9-to-5. You need to make sure it's a 6-figure job so that you can pay all the bills and have a healthy retirement. You know, all of those things will come up stronger the more you're in anxiety and fear. So the heart's desires will grow stronger as you're in that sense of presence and profound peace. And then the opposing desires will go stronger the more chaotic your energy is. Does that make sense? That nuance? We talked about it a little bit in the first and second calls as well. Press 1 if that makes sense to you. Good. Excellent. Excellent. Good. All right. That's what I like to see. Lots of ones. Okay, so how to connect with your heart's desires. This is built upon previous lessons. This does apply. This fits perfectly with everything we've been talking about so far. Basically, what we're going to talk about today is the ways to use the intuition for doing this. So basically, how to connect with your heart's desires. We're going to do this as an activity first. I'm going to explain what we're doing, and then we're going to do it. And then we will do a bit of a debrief before we move on with the training. So what you're going to do is you're going to allow yourself to relax and focus on your breathing. You're basically going to put your hands over your heart and feel that connection as best you can. And you're going to welcome it. Now, you may or may not have emotions pop up as you do it, especially if you have some repressed emotions. They might come up. Just let them up. Trust the process. You're perfect, whole, and complete right now in this moment. And you're just going to allow yourself to feel it. And then you ask, once you feel that connection, heart, what would make you happy? What is it that you truly desire? So this is you asking your deepest core self what you truly desire. So you want to focus on the energy of the heart. Your mind's going to come up with the answers right away. It's going to start telling you things that it thinks that you should want, right? You're just going to ignore it. You're going to focus on that heart energy. And you're going to give it about 2 minutes to settle in. And that desire will grow stronger as you are doing it. Now, this is something that you want to just keep aware of as you're doing it. So as you focus on the energy of the heart will start to give you an answer. And sometimes the answer is just going to be what you desire that day. Sometimes it's going to give you a longer trajectory, something that it wants out of life that it's time to step into. Sometimes it's going to be a mix. Maybe it's just a 1 or 2 month goal, if you will. So does that make sense? Are you pretty much ready to dive in? Does all of this resonate? If you have questions, go ahead and let me know before we dive in. Okay, I'm going to drink water. Okay, I'm going to check to see if it makes sense for our Facebook folks. I think I have a couple people watching right now. So let me just make sure. Oh, I need to put this on mute again or else we will hear me talking while I am talking. Okay, good. So we don't have any questions yet. So that's just fine. All right, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to do this exercise. So go ahead and allow yourself to relax. And go ahead and put your hands over your heart. And remember from last time, those shoulders are relaxed back and down, right? So allow yourself to relax. Allow yourself to focus on your breathing in and out. If you haven't already, go ahead and place your hands over your heart and welcome that connection as best as you can. Feel the energy from your hands to your heart and allow that sensation or energy to grow. And with each breath in, allow yourself to breathe in a sense of peace and well-being. And with each breath out, allow yourself to release all that doesn't serve you. And create the intention that the energy from your hands to your heart will continue to grow as you do this exercise. And as you're breathing and relaxing, allow your mind to simply think of and then let go of all the things you think you should be, do, have, or become. They'll come up, but just let them go as they do. Let them drift out of your awareness as best you can. And welcome the sensation between your hands and your heart. And now that you're relaxed and tuned in, just ask your heart, what would make you happy? What is it that you truly desire? And welcome all of the thoughts, feelings, and sensations that come up. You don't have to do anything with them, just notice them. And focus on that sensation with your hands and your heart and the energy growing. There will be 1 or 2 things that really start to clarify or become stronger. The more you relax into the question, heart, what would make you happy? And what is it that you truly desire? It will feel like this desire comes from deep within, not your mind, but your body, your heart. A desire that starts at your stomach and goes up to your heart. and feel centered between you, your heart, and your hands. And welcome the sense of clarity. And welcome any impressions that you get. And allow yourself to simply welcome it all until it fully clarifies. And remember, if you don't quite understand what it's telling you, just ask, Heart, could you send me that same message a different way? And continue this until you feel like you have a clear answer. And when you do, go ahead and write it down, either on a piece of paper in front of you or in the chat box if you want to share. And whenever you are complete with the exercise, go ahead and press 1 in the chat box, or you can type your experience if you feel called to share. No rush. I'm just going to stay muted until I start getting those ones. Excellent. So we'll give it another 30 seconds. So if you still need to write something down, go ahead and do so. And I'd love to know, for those of you that did this, did it feel fairly easy to do this? You can put this in the chat box while we're allowing others to wrap up. Did it feel a little difficult? Was there a little bit of resistance? Just tell me what happened for you. Mm, good. So Aditi says it feels really challenging. It's hard to disentangle my mind from my heart. Uh, and Zana said it flowed easily. And Javier says that he liked that exercise. Welcome, everyone. I know a couple of you arrived a little late. That's just fine. You're welcome anytime you arrive. Okay, yeah, so Aditi, whenever it feels challenging because you've lived in your head for so long, the good news is it gets easier with practice. And, this is one of those things, the more you practice it, the easier it becomes, right? And so, Xana, I know you've done a lot of this work professionally. So I suspect that's one reason it was fairly easy for you. This isn't your first time doing this. It's not your second or third time doing this either. Okay, great. And Javier, I'm so glad that it was easy for you. All right, let's move on just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and minimize the chat so I can focus on this. Okay, so we're going to talk about some really cool ways to rewire the body-mind system. I'm going to teach you actually how to let go of thoughts, feelings, and sensations. So Aditi, this is going to be really helpful for you, especially since your mind has a lot to say about what you are and are not doing. So we're going to talk about like the process of letting go, the process of welcoming, and connection to yourself. I'm going to mute. I have to cough. Ooh, my throat chakra is not used to doing a podcast and a live class yet, is it? But that's okay, throat chakra. We've got you. You're safe. Okay. So we're going to talk about how to rewire your body mind system, and we're going to talk about affirmations. And the really important thing with affirmations is the affirmations are for your mind and your body. Your spirit's already on board, right? You're just helping the body mind to get on board with something that's already a spiritual truth, right? And so it's really important to keep that in mind, because if you think you're trying to force or trick yourself into believing something, affirmations just will not work. Right. So go ahead and press 2 if you've ever tried affirmations and it kind of felt good when you're doing it, but it didn't seem to work as far as actual results in your life. Go ahead and put a 2 in the chat box. Whenever affirmations are used appropriately, they assist you in, number 1, staying in alignment, and number 2, assist you in feeling empowered and focused on what you feel called to be, do, have, or become. And the other thing that it's really good for is uncovering those places where you have subconscious beliefs that are going to sabotage you and your work. So let's see here. Yeah, we've got a couple 2s here. People try to use affirmations and they didn't work. And that's okay. There's some tricks to it, to using them properly. I actually don't even teach affirmations in most of my entry-level courses. Right? I don't. I know a lot of people start the work with affirmations. My personal opinion is that that's premature. So in my Spiritual Mechanic Foundations course, there's 100 level classes, 200 level classes, 300 level classes, and 400 level classes, right? And this is a 300 level skill. And so I'm going to teach it today. I'm going to give you some tools, and I really recommend that you take it to heart and use everything we've learned up until today and integrate what I'm teaching today too. Esther, I'm so glad you could join us. Thank you for being here. And the replay will hopefully be up sometime this afternoon. We're just going to have to see. It's going to be a busy day tomorrow at the latest. Thanks for joining us. Okay. So that is why we do affirmations. That's the purpose of affirmations. The number 1 mistake is that people use affirmations and they're just putting a happy face over a frowny face, basically. The affirmations, they use the affirmations, but they don't let go of the old beliefs. This is why so many of you hit 2. It's because you probably weren't taught how to release those old beliefs or even find those old beliefs or energies. And so you have these affirmations and you have these old beliefs, and now they're conflicting. And if they are conflicting, what happens is your energy, maybe not your words, but your energy is sending conflicting messages to the universe. And when your energy sends conflicting messages to the universe, then the universe doesn't know what to do, and you get a stuck signal. The universe puts brakes on your manifestations. You'll have stagnancy. You will have the same situations appearing again and again in a cycle. And basically, it doesn't feel good. Like, it feels like I've been here before, I've done this before, why is it showing up again? I did the affirmations, I meditated, what else am I supposed to do here? Press 2 in the chat box if this feels familiar. We're gonna go through it here. All right, so affirmations are best used after you identify a true heart's desire. And the reason is that so many people, again, this is why I consider it a more advanced skill. People use affirmations for things that their heart doesn't even want. Their heart will be like, I want to start a spiritual-based business. This is just the theme of the day, folks. Stick with me here. You don't have to want a spiritual-based business to participate. I want a spiritual-based business. And then the mind says, I want 6 figures. And so then you create the affirmation, I earn 6 figures, right? And then the heart is like, no, I want to start a spiritual-based business. 6 figures is great, but that's not what I want. What I want is a spiritual-based business, right? And so basically, they're using the affirmations for the wrong thing that they don't actually want, and absolutely, you're not going to manifest that. So, number one, you do want to wait until you have a true heart's desire. And if you're not sure, that's when you ask the guides for assistance. Usually, whenever people are just starting off on their path, they ask the guides for a lot of assistance. Then, once they get used to it, they start living in alignment, they start to feel good, they get in touch with their heart, and then they start having desires that they're aware of. And then they can start saying, this is what I want. How do I get there? This is what I want my guides, the big universe. How do I get to the place that I want to be? And so the next thing, you want to write the affirmations in the present tense. So this is standard. If you've ever studied affirmations, this is not news to you. And so present tense allows you to, allows your mind to learn to think about it happening now. And that's because your mind is heavily creative. It is the one that is absorbing and filtering all of the information around you and giving you the most important pieces of information as it sees fit. So whenever you say it in the present tense, you're saying, hey, this is what's important to me right now. This is what I want you to be bringing to me right now. I want you to recognize these opportunities. I want you to recognize the things that bring me closer to this specific thing. And the next piece is if you feel any resistance at all, if there's any part of your mind that says you can't do that, if your ego's getting in the way, you want to use the word allow. And this is the super secret sauce, because this is where you really start to open up to your desires. So for instance, let's say it actually is a heart-centered desire to earn, let's say, 6 figures. And again, this is just, money can be a really easy example. I'm not saying you should want it. Don't add to the shoulds. You don't have to. So if you say, I now earn 6 figures or more every year, your mind is, if that's not true in your physical reality right now, your mind is not going to be cooperative. It's going to say, no, you don't. This is the thing that you earn. This is not 6 figures. You're deluding yourself. I'm not going to help you be in denial. But if you say, I allow myself to earn 6 figures, now the mind is like, oh, I have permission to do this? Oh, okay, let me think about that. Is there any reason I shouldn't have permission to do this? And it'll usually spit some stuff out at you that it's time for you to kind of address. Those are usually the reasons that you haven't had that goal. You haven't experienced that heart-centered desire yet, right? Does that make sense? Like why I recommend using the word allow and the mechanics of how that works? Go ahead and let me know in the chat box. Good, good, excellent, excellent. Okay, good. That's what I like to hear. Okay, so moving back. So basically, you want to include what you want. When writing your affirmations, you want to include what you want, but you don't want to have anything that you don't want. So for instance, if you, for instance, want to quit smoking cigarettes, you wouldn't say, I now quit smoking cigarettes, because the subconscious doesn't really work in negatives. The subconscious doesn't hear negatives. For instance, if I say, don't think about a pink elephant, what are you thinking about right now? You're thinking about a pink elephant. Congratulations. Right? That's the way the mind works. So you want to give it. So if you don't want to think about a pink elephant, you've got to give it something that you want to think of. So let's say a blue llama. Now, if you say, I let myself visualize a blue llama, or even simpler, blue llama, right? Now you're not thinking about the thing that you don't want, the pink elephant. You're thinking about that blue llama. Right? And that's the way we want to write the affirmations. You want to keep the things that you do want. Your mind is probably going to try to trick you into including some things you don't want. It's like, how will I know that I don't want this other thing? Because it's not the thing that you're focusing on. It's okay, mind. We're going to do this. It's going to be great. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. If you have questions, put them in the chat box. Next, you also want to be specific, but not limiting. So for instance, let's go back to the money example. This is really easy to demonstrate what I mean. You can do 6 figures or more per year, right? So you want to welcome the amount that you want, 6 figures, and then the or more says, but I'm open to more if you want to give it to me, universe, right? So you're not limiting it to exactly 100,000, You are saying, I am open to more. So you want to make sure that whenever you word your affirmations, they're specific, but they are not limiting. You want to phrase your goal in the positive. And also, here's a really, really important thing. You want to get rid of words like want. Don't include it. I want $1,000. No. Whenever you have the word want in there, your mind is thinking that your heart's desire is to experience want for that $1,000. Not that you have $1,000. You're not allowing yourself to have. You are baking into it that you want $1,000. That I want it, but I can't have it is the feeling that you're asking your subconscious for whenever you use the word want or anything else. So you want to, it's wise to focus on the thing you actually want to experience. So instead of saying, I want $10,000, you say, I allow myself to have $10,000, right? So again, you state the end results. Be as concise as you can. The good rule to follow is about 12 words or less, 12 words or less. And you want to write it in such a way that it lights you up. If it feels heavy, change it. So here's a really good example. Let's say your end goal is $10,000 a month. And right now, there's no part of you that believes that it can actually happen, right? And so what you can say is, I allow myself to make $2,000 or more a month, right? And so now you have, if you have $10,000 a month, that's more than 2,000. So it's already in your goal. And if your mind already believes that you can create $2,000 a month, then that is going to allow you to take appropriate aligned action. It allows your mind to get on board, and it welcomes your larger overarching goal of more. Again, I use money because it's a really easy example. It's finite. There's a definite amount that you usually want, that you are striving for, etc. Does that make sense? Before I move on, go ahead and press 1 if it makes sense in the chat box. And if you have questions, press 2 so I know that you need to type out some questions. Okay, makes sense. Good, good. Excellent. That's what I like to hear. All right. And so, good, good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Oops, wrong one. It's in the wrong box. Okay. So examples, these are just a few things that you can do. And again, if you are watching the replay, you can pause to write these down. And if you're here live, you can, whenever you watch the replay, you can write these down too. So I allow myself to have a net income of XXXX per month or more, right? The or more keeps it open, it keeps it flowing. I allow myself to be paid well for doing what I love. I allow myself to have the perfect relationship for me. I allow myself to easily achieve and maintain my ideal body weight. I allow myself to love myself as I am. Now, these are all common heart's desires. And one really interesting thing is, do you see how none of these are limiting? None of these are putting a should. For instance, with the ideal body weight, we're not actually saying what that should be, right? So we are actually engaging the body and mind to help create what that's going to be. And whenever you say, I allow myself to have the perfect relationship for me, you're welcoming it in. And the other thing that happens is the mind will start to find all the ways that you're in the perfect relationship for you for now. It will also show you how you're not and how you can shift it. Okay, so it is now time for you to take that heart-centered desire, and you're going to go ahead and write out your affirmation. So go ahead. It's going to take a little bit of time. Go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and put myself on mute. I'll be here to answer questions. Do you have any questions before I put myself on mute about how to do this? I will be answering questions as we go, but I do want you to write your affirmations. That way you can work with them today. And as you do this, you can go ahead and put a 2 in the chat box when you're done, just so I know where people are at. And, again, if you have any questions as you're doing it, that's what it's for. Okay, we're going to give it about another 2 minutes. Oh, hi, Tsipa. It's good to see you here. One minute. So go ahead and finish up if you're not done. And if you are done, go ahead and press uh, what number did I decide on? 2 in the chat box. Great. So Anna's complete. All right. So, how was that? Go ahead and put it in the chat box. How was that experience for you? Aditi mentioned that it might sound weird, but her heart feels suspicious of her mind, and her mind feels suspicious of her heart. And to have them agreeing feels really uncomfortable. That's normal. So, basically, from what you've said, it sounds like you have had a relationship where the heart and the head are used to disagreeing, right? You're expecting your mind to say one thing and your heart to say another, and it's this constant war, and you've gotten used to that. So when that happens, what will happen is it's basically just what you're comfortable with. So the body mind is trying to figure out how to recreate that scenario. So the fact that they agree feels uncomfortable is actually a sign of growth. So I would encourage you to write on a note card or a little sticky note somewhere, it's okay to feel uncomfortable, because this is kind of how we grow. So yeah, Aditi, that's very common and you're not doing anything wrong. That's actually a sign of progress. Really good. Okay, so did you like that exercise? Was it fun? Was it enjoyable, or was it difficult? How did it feel? Good. Okay, as you're typing, I'm going to keep going. Okay, so I'm actually, while you're doing that, if you want to, I'm going to talk about how to visualize. Tipa says it's really fun to explore my true desires. Good. So we're going to talk about how to visualize this because visualization is usually taught by clairvoyant folks. And I love my clairvoyant folks, but visualization isn't always visual. And actually, the industry's gotten so much better in recent years. But when I started, almost all the visualization was talking about image, 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 image. But your visualization may not include images, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing to worry about. Visualizing isn't always going to be visual in nature. So you can use a letting go process. We're going to teach some in a minute. So basically, the 4 steps to letting go is very simple. If you feel stuck in your visualization process, get in touch with what you're feeling. That's step 1. Could you let that go? And this is just about your willingness to let that go. Are you willing to let that go? Would you let that go? And when? And that the when question is not a way to trick yourself or force yourself to let go. It's an invitation to let it go now, right? So basically, here's an example, because the letting go process might be new to some of you folks, especially if you haven't worked with me one-on-one a lot. But the letting go process is basically getting in touch with what you're feeling. So let's say you want to visualize new house. Again, we're going to keep it material just because it's easy to create that. Your heart's desires may or may not have anything material in them. So you visualize your new house, you know that it's going to be blue, it's going to be near the ocean, and then all of a sudden, like you feel overwhelmed with stuckness. And you feel, oh no, I can never have that. That's going to be too expensive. I definitely can't do that. I shouldn't even bother with this desire because why would I spend my time wanting something I can't actually have, right? So if something like that comes up for you, you want to get in touch with what are you currently experiencing. You're experiencing doubts, you're experiencing some thoughts about it. And so the first question is, what are you feeling? So that's the thoughts about not being able to have the house. It's the feelings of not being able to have the house. It's that feeling of fed upness, like why should I even bother? And then the next question is, could you let that energy go, that thought that you can't have it go, that feeling like it's not worth it to try go? Just could you? Like, are you willing to? And then let yourself answer honestly. You don't have to force an answer. And then, would you let it go? Would you let that thought just drift out of your mind? And if you would, when would you let it go? And that's an invitation to do it then, and to just drop it in as best you can. Allow yourself to just let it drift out of your mind and out of your awareness. And that's all letting go is letting it drift out of your awareness. And so basically, as you're doing your visualization, all of those negative thoughts will come up, and you're going to practice just letting them go, letting them drift out while you focus on welcoming the visualizations, energies, and feelings that are in alignment with the thing that you want. So I allow myself to have the house of my dreams is different than I have to have it next week. So I allow myself to have the house of my dreams. And this is just about getting rid of the internal resistance. And so you'll welcome the thoughts, feelings, and images, and you'll stay focused on the actual desire. So you'll allow those thoughts to come up and drift, come up and drift. And then you stay focused on what you actually desire without getting distracted by the negative Nelly thoughts. Okay, and so this could come up as pictures, sensations, and images, but you don't actually have to actively create anything in your mind's eye. You might discover that your imagination starts to get on board and it becomes really fun to imagine the different parts of having the thing that your heart desires. Absolutely allow your imagination to come on board for as long as it feels fun to do this. But what you don't want to do is to feel like you have to actively create anything with your mind, right? As you do this, you simply want to welcome, not force. Does that make sense? Press 1 if that makes sense. Good. Good. Okay. So we're going to do this live, and then we are going to move on to the living and aligned action portion, right? So At this point, you should have an affirmation that you have worded using all of our fancy schmancy rules. And so go ahead and choose your affirmation and allow yourself to focus on it. And I want you to, once again, get into a relaxed position. You know from last time how important posture is, so make sure your shoulders are relaxed back and down, your chin is up and not covering that throat chakra. And you can have your affirmation in front of you to read if you need to, but you mostly want to have your face up, right? So it's okay to look down to look at it, but then you put your head back up. Okay. So choose your affirmation and allow yourself to get into a relaxed position. And allow yourself to focus on your breath. With each breath in, allow yourself to feel more at ease and more relaxed. Allow yourself to welcome the sensation of feeling present and centered in this moment. And if you haven't already, go ahead and place your hands over your heart. And you can say this internally or out loud, whatever you're most comfortable with, but state your affirmation. Either read it to yourself or say it out loud. And as you do this, feel the energy of your heart. And just let that affirmation release into the universe and welcome the thoughts, feelings, and sensations that come up naturally. Allow your energy to welcome and open. And as you have released this affirmation, welcome the full range of sensation, thoughts, and images that play out. Let it be organic and natural. And if you feel your mind or energy getting a little distracted, just reaffirm or restate your affirmation. Say it again, either out loud or to yourself. And remember, if any negative thoughts pop up or any you can't be, do, or have this type energy pops up, remember to welcome it, fully recognize it, and allow it to drift out of your awareness as you refocus on allowing what your desire is. And focus on that allowing energy as best you can. Good. So allow yourself to gently come back to normal external awareness. This was a quick 3 to 5 minute visualization process. And you can do this anytime you desire. Some people enjoy doing it with the inner steel technique that we learned last time. And you can do that as often as you actually want to. You can do that technique twice a day. And you can use this in companion with that. The other thing is you can just use this anytime you actually want to feel into and play with different options and opportunities. And if you do have a clear goal that you're going for, you can do this a couple times a day just to recenter on what it is that you truly want. So go ahead and let me know in the chat box, how was that experience for you? Okay. So as you're typing, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I don't have any hidden comments on the Facebook. Good. Okay, looks like we're good there. Excellent. Okay, good. Excellent. So I'm going to stop this share for just a minute. We're going to go ahead and just do a quick check-in. How was that exercise? Did you like it? And then we're going to get into aligned action. We're going to talk about aligned action and what that looks like and how that works. Because so far, what we've done up until this point, and I mentioned this earlier too, is we have worked to learn how to receive information. And now we have talked about affirmations, how to decide what it is we want to explore and feel into. And then next, it's about actually getting into action. So you align first, and then you get into action, right? And so that's really important. It's wise to do that. I recommend doing it on a regular basis. I recommend it being part of your daily practice when you can. Okay. Great. Yeah, so this is a very helpful practice. Good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share once again. So we're going to talk about how to release on goals and effort. So this is important because releasing on goals is how you actually let go of the things that used to hold you back. So this is, once again, we're getting the full body, mind, and spirit on board. And let me scroll up. I think there's a couple things we want to talk about first. Good. So aligned action. Let's talk about it. I have a phrase that I say a lot. If you've been following me for a while, I use the phrase appropriate aligned action. You've probably heard me say it a few times if you've been following me for a while. And if you haven't, there's a reason I say it. So when you take aligned action and you're actually in alignment with your heart center and your spirit, you will generally feel at ease. You'll feel at one with the universe, and the action itself feels effortless. Generally, if you have misaligned action, if you're trying to take action from a place of misalignment or a should or must or have to, it's going to feel forced. It's going to feel full of struggle, and it requires a lot of effort. You have to try really hard, and you have to focus really hard. And there's all these internal voices, and there's an internal war. Now, that's not necessary. Some of that is just being human. Congratulations. But a large part of it you can clear and release, and is optional. You don't have to have it. If you enjoy it, keep it. It's fine. You're allowed to like what you like. But if you'd rather not have the struggle, I'm going to show you some tips. Okay, so here's when to move forward. Whenever you do these practices where you're working with your intuition, you're integrating your ego, you are using your body to get it as a full partner in your life, and you are actually choosing what you want, and you're doing your alignment practices. Here's the thing. You will feel a natural pull to move forward, and you may have some fear because maybe you're doing things that you've never done before. Maybe your ego's a little bit afraid of some of the things that might pop up, but the feel, that pull to move forward, is stronger than the fear. You don't have to get the fear at zero, right? You do not have to get the fear at zero in order to move forward. You simply want to let that pull of moving forward be stronger than the fear to take action. When the fear doesn't feel loud, or it just feels like the normal experience of going out of your comfort zone. Now, if you've never gone out of your comfort zone before in your life, it might be pretty loud the first time, right? That's okay. It gets easier as you practice it. But you'll notice that that pull forward, especially when you're tuning into your intuition, you're aligning with what you really want, you're using the poses from the inner steel technique, you're working with your guides, etc. You'll find that that fear isn't in control anymore. Oh, and you're integrating your ego, because that's important. And then what happens is, this is what surprises people, because I train people on it's okay to take action when you feel fear. But here's the cool thing. When you give yourself full permission to have the full range of human emotions, you give yourself permission to have every single emotion that exists, and you're willing to align, and you're willing to choose what it is that your heart desires, and you choose to take action anyway. What actually happens is you start to get into flow. It starts to feel good and it becomes effortless. And even if there has been fear, it becomes this effortless action. And then a couple hours go by and you just completed a big thing that was that you thought was going to be really hard for you, but it actually wasn't, right? So it's just really interesting how that happens. And so when to realign. Okay, I have a question here, I think. So let me check. Bloop. That was really good. Would you mind saying it again, please? I don't think I can because I channeled it, Sipa. But whenever the replay comes out, you can go to it. It's about an hour and 5 minutes in. Yeah, but really good question. I just, yeah. Okay, so when to realign? When it feels forced, whenever it feels like you're trying to force yourself to take action. There's a difference between choosing to take action because it's the heart's decision, right? And maybe the ego is saying a little bit of stuff, but you really know that this is the calling to move forward. It's a pull, right? So the sensation is it's pulling you forward. But when you feel like you have to force your way through, you have to put your shoulder to the grindstone, so to speak, that's forced. It's going to feel hard-edged, like you have to, you must, you should. It's going to feel rushed. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough energy. I have to do it all right now. I can't take a rest, right? That's the rushed sensation when it feels contracted. Oh, I don't feel good. I'm not good enough. No one's going to love me. Everyone's going to hate me if I do this, right? Like that kind of thing. And if it feels stressful, again, whenever you are in alignment, you're going to feel the pull, right? Again, the sensation I always get is like a string on the heart and I'm being pulled forward and it feels like I can't help but take the action. Or even if there's still some stuff talking, or if I'm getting out of my comfort zone and I've never done this before, there's just that draw to go forward. The fear does not have to be under perfect control. That pull or that push forward wants to be there. Okay. So, but if it feels forced, hard-edged, rushed, contracted, or stressful, that's when you want to take the time to really realign. Aditi, this is one of those places where the mind is going to try to trick you into action. I'm calling you out just because I know you're a claircog, and I know other people are hearing this too. But this is something where you really will want to take the time to go deep and release and feel those emotions. And we're going to talk about how to do that in a minute. Okay, how to release on goals. This is really cool. This is where we're getting to the subconscious processes. You're removing the subconscious beliefs so that you can actually take that aligned action, right? So you're going to choose your goal. That's number one. And the goal should feel realistic to you for now. So again, if it's one of those goals that you know you can do in your heart of hearts, but your mind is just arguing nonstop, choose something that your mind can get on board with just for now. You can always increase it later and make it more difficult or increase the resistance, so to speak. You want to think of it like working out. But you want to start with something that feels realistic for you just because you'll get enough information doing the realistic thing that you'll be able to grow into the goals that don't feel realistic in this moment. Okay? So this is how you do it. What is it that you actually want? And then that's your goal. What is the experience you're having now? By the way, when you watch the replay, you can write all of these down. For now, I just want you to experience it, right? What is your now experience or thought about the goal? Could you welcome that experience or thought? Could you let that go as best you can? And could you allow yourself to have your goal as best you can? Could you give yourself permission? That's the entire thing. Okay. And then we're actually going to go a little deeper. Now, if you only did this first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step process, that's enough. Whenever I'm working with private clients on goals, energy, and alignment, this is the 5-step process that we use. By the way, this process is from the Sedona Method by Hale Dwoskin. If you really enjoy it, I recommend you check out some of his other work. And so he had a facilitator training, and I went through it. So now I get to teach this when I feel called and inspired to. But anyway, this is something that I really love. Okay, so if you want to go deeper, some deeper questions you go to is, what's your deepest fear about achieving this goal? Could you let that go as best you can? Could you let go of expecting that to happen? What is your biggest fantasy about achieving this goal? And could you let that go as best as you can? And could you let go of expecting that to happen? So we're going to go through this a few times together, right? So let's scroll up. I want you right now, if you have any questions before we get started, put them in the chat box. But we're going to get started pretty quick with this. I want you to actually take your goal, get it in front of you again, and we're going to go through this a couple times, and then we're going to move forward with a little bit more content. We don't want to spend too much more time on this. I just want to make sure that we spend enough time that you know what it feels like to let go and actually have a heart-centered goal so that you can take aligned action. Okay. All right, I'm not seeing anything in the chat box. I'm going to assume we are good to go. Good. Okay. All right, so allow yourself to focus on your goal. Now you, as best you can, allow your heart to answer as you do this, right? I'm going to guide you through this. If you have a hard time getting the mind and the heart to talk with one another, hand over the heart, works really well. But you don't have to. If you're pretty in tuned, you don't have to do that. So allow yourself to think about your goal. What is it that your heart desires? And just allow yourself to welcome whatever comes up for you. And notice, what is it that you're experiencing now? Or what's the first thought that comes to mind whenever you think about your goal? And just for now, could you welcome that thought or feeling? And remember, you don't have to force yourself to say yes. You can say no. It works perfectly well either way. And just for now, could you let that thought or feeling go? Could you just release it into the universe as best you can? And just for now, could you give yourself permission to have your goal as best you can? Could you welcome that sense that you are giving yourself full permission to have the thing that your heart desires? And let's do that one more time. And allow yourself, as you do this exercise, you can release even positive thoughts or feelings. As you let go of positive thoughts or feelings, you'll find an even deeper sense of peace. But if you find that you just really enjoy those positive thoughts or feelings, maybe it's a little different than your norm, you can hold on to them if you want. There's no wrong way to do this. So allow yourself to look at your goal one more time. And allow yourself to welcome the thoughts, feelings, and experiences that pop up in your mind and in your body. And could you just welcome that thought or feeling? And now, could you just let that thought, feeling, or sensation release to the universe? Let it drift out of your awareness as best you can. And could you give yourself permission to have your goal as best as you can? Good. And now we're going to go a little deeper. Allow yourself to think about your goal and read it to yourself out loud or silently, whatever feels best to you. And what is your deepest fear about achieving this goal? And just allow yourself to welcome whatever comes up for you naturally. You don't have to force anything. And just for now, could you let go of that fear? Could you just let it drift out of your awareness as best you can? And usually when we have a fear, there's an expectation that it might happen, and we have to prepare for it. So just for now, could you let go of the expectation that this bad thing or unwanted thing will happen? Could you just let it drift out of your awareness and let yourself feel peace instead? And could you give yourself permission to simply have the desire that you want, to have your goal, rather than want it? And allow yourself to think about your goal once again. And you can read it to yourself, silently or out loud, whatever feels easiest. And what's your biggest fantasy about achieving this goal? And just welcome whatever comes to mind for you. And just for now, could you let that fantasy go and just let it drift out of awareness as best you can? And could you also let go of expecting that fantasy to happen and instead welcome whatever's for your highest good, health, wealth, and happiness? Good. So allow yourself to take a couple relaxing breaths. I'm going to stop the share for a minute. Okay. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. Jessica has a question, and I'm going to go ahead and answer it. I think it's a good one. She says, how do you know how to know if you don't feel the pull to do something because it's not your heart's desire, or just because you have resistance and fear to it? Really good question, Jessica. So the best way to know is to just work with it. So for instance, if you think it's a heart's desire, and it ends up not being a heart's desire, it's just a shiny object, the more you do the work, the power poses with the inner steel technique, the alignment work that we're outlining today, then what will happen is that particular desire, that thing that you think you want to do, will start to dissolve and you'll start to have no pull whatsoever, right? And so yeah, does that answer? And if you don't feel a pull to do something because you're stuck in fear and resistance, that's what the resistance process is for. That's why we do the releasing on a heart's desire. That's why we really work on releasing those subconscious fears. And that's why we do it in that way. That's because, you know, again, we talked about intuition first. I consider that foundational skill. That's the foundation everything else gets built on. If you don't know how to listen to your intuition, it's really hard to figure out whether it's a fear that's stopping you or whether it's your intuition that's stopping you, right? And so if you're doing the power poses, the alignment, you're listening to your intuition, you'll be guided the correct direction. Let me know if that makes sense, Jessica. Really good question. Really good question. Good, good. She says it makes sense. Excellent. Excellent. Good. Okay. So basically, whenever you decide that it is time for you to take appropriate aligned action, you want to actually get into movement. So basically, I recommend, you know, the inner steel technique. Some of y'all did it 2 times a day since our last call. And I'm really pleased about that. I'm glad that you chose to do that. And what you'll want to do is you'll want to integrate this work with that. So this is a journaling exercise that you can do. You can also record yourself saying the questions and play it while you're in the poses. Whatever works for you. Do what's easy. And then what's going to happen is it's going to really allow you to release what doesn't serve you, align you with what you really want, and it's a really great way to do it. Now, the other important thing is as you move forward, you want to start celebrating your wins. Now, we are a group of highly sensitive folks, and so it's really wise to make sure that you're tracking your wins, because as you do this, your ego is going to come up and be like, nothing works, and it's going to be dramatic about it. And even though it's integrated, you want to make sure that you have a list of things that you know you've done well, because it's a really concrete way to help the ego feel good, to get the mind on board, and to keep you excited and motivated. Does that make sense? Let me know. Let me know. Good. Great. Okay. So I really recommend doing a win journal. I recommend keeping it really simple. I'm a very simple kind of gal. So I just buy, it's basically at the time of this recording in the US, it's basically the time of year that kids are going back to school. And that's when I stock up on these puppies. This is a college ruled notebook, right? I've got a dream journal. I have a journal for all of my goals. I have a client session journal. Like I have about a dozen different journals, and I write on the top, this is a new one. It hasn't been used yet. But I just go ahead and write down a couple times a week, sometimes daily, my wins in my win journal. What did I do well that day? What happened that was a challenge for me that day, but I did it and it was really aligned and it felt really good. So once or twice a week minimum, I recommend doing this daily if you can. You want to be writing down the things that you've done well. You want to be giving yourself credit. Give yourself credit where credit is due. And you want to really tune into giving yourself credit for what's a challenge for you. Don't compare yourself to other people. Of course, there are going to be people who have already done the thing that you want to do. That's not a big deal. That just means that you can do it too. So you want to be focusing on your growth for yourself. So once or twice a day, or once or twice a week, you want to go ahead and write down your wins. Some people prefer really pretty journals. I find you don't write in the pretty ones. And it's, yeah. So like I have a pretty one that I use I tried to use. Look at how pretty this is. Like this is gorgeous. It's my favorite color. It's shiny, but I just didn't use it. So I go with the things that I use. And so Tsipa says there's one for like $8 at Target that she adores. And she also has one for each topic. Yes, Tsipa, that's wonderful. I really recommend that you have a journal that you use for your wins. I recommend you look through it regularly. And I really recommend that you honor the progress that you make. There's always progress, right? And the more you celebrate, the more you honor yourself and the steps that you're taking, the easier it's going to be to take action in the future. Does that make sense? Does all of this make sense to you? I'd love to know. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Good. Good. Yeah. And so, yeah, good. So this is how you get everything on board, right? So I just want to talk about everything we've covered up until today because it is so wonderful to really bring it all together. So we first talked about the fact that you're always receiving intuition and intuitive information. And so now you know that you're always going to receive an intuitive piece of information and your only job is to figure out and recognize it, right? And that's as simple as asking the universe to send it a different way if you don't know what the answer is. And then you learned the importance of symbols. We went through the 7 major chakras. We went through dream symbolism. And we had a couple examples from some brave souls who let me work through their dreams publicly. And I'm deeply appreciative of every one of you that did that. And then we worked through the fear aspect, that trust aspect, that place where you can really trust yourself and the universe. And so we worked on integrating the ego, and we worked on getting the body on board through appropriate posture. And today we focused on getting affirmations clear, working through the goals, and then taking aligned action. So what I'd really love for you to do is after this call, choose one action you're going to take today that's in alignment with what your goal, your heart's desire is. And then I want you to take action towards it, right? And so I want you to use a pose if you need to, and then, just get in the posture. You can do the Wonder Woman with your hands on your hips. You can do whatever pose you want, and then take one piece of action and allow yourself to do it as best as you can, right? You already know how to release. You can do that anytime you want. Welcome the feelings and choose what you desire. And wait until you have that pull, but you don't have to wait too long. If you're focused on your desire and it's a heart calling, it'll pull you forward. Okay. Does that make sense? If you can commit to that, go ahead and press 2 in the chat box. Excellent. Excellent. We've got some 2s. Wonderful. Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone who decided to be here with me during this 4-part series. This has been such a pleasure. And bye, Tsipa. Have a good one. It's been such a pleasure to go and do this with you. If you've really loved this series, on Monday, I'm opening the doors to the Spiritual Mechanic Foundations course. I'm not going to give any details today. All of the details will be released next week. And so if you've really loved this, if you're thinking, okay, I want more of things like this, then you definitely want to pay attention. The email will come out on Monday. And I can't wait to tell you all about it. And if you have questions, I'll always be here to answer them. So thank you, everyone, and have a lovely rest of your day. And have a wonderful weekend as well. Thank you again.